positions set out in our position paper, Secure the Environment. Under a Conservative government, Canada will meet its Paris Agreement targets, and importantly, without killing jobs or taxing an already overtaxed population. Our plan will help the environment while also helping Canadians succeed in every region of the country and in all sectors. The Liberal plan, on the other hand, is based on an ever-increasing taxation plan which, while being presented as revenue neutral to the government, is certainly not revenue neutral to the taxpayer. At best, it's a tax scheme that redistributes wealth away from those living in parts of the country where greater energy consumption is a fact of life. Why are they being punished for that? The Conservative plan, on the other hand, is much fairer in that it sets aside some of the money that each consumer will pay for energy consumption into a personal savings account that the consumer can spend or invest as they see best for their own purposes on green options. The big distinction between the Liberal carbon tax and the Conservatives' plan to secure the environment is that Conservatives trust Canadians to do the right thing, to spend their money wisely, to be incentivized to think green, to act responsibly about the environment, and to do their part. We all want to do that. Liberals, on the other hand, think that governments know best. We think educated Canadians know best. Bill C-12, while being promoted as a significant step forward in the fight against climate change, is really more symbolic than substantive. It might give the casual political observer the impression that something significant is happening. But keep in mind, Bill C-12 follows on Canada's dismal record of setting and then missing its emissions reductions targets. So what does Bill C-12 do? Well, let's take a look at Section 16, which says, and I'm going to quote from that, so I think it's important to be read into the record. If the minister, this is under the heading Failure to Achieve Target. If the minister concludes that Canada has not achieved its national greenhouse gas emission target for the milestone year, or 2015 as the case may be, the minister, after consultations, I'm paraphrasing, prepare a report include the following assessment. A, the reasons why Canada failed to meet the target. B, a description of actions the government of Canada is taking or will take to address the failure to achieve the target. And C, finally, any other information that the minister considers appropriate. So what happens if we miss the target? Oh, well, not much. We just set another target. We create more reports. And the conversation just continues as though nothing happened. If anything, this helps Canada's pulp and paper industry as more and more reports are being printed. Canada is a federal company, has been noted by some of the previous speakers, with parliamentary sovereignty shared among two levels of government. And much of what is needed to be accomplished in protecting the environment falls within exclusive jurisdiction of the provinces under Section 92(13) of the Constitution Act 1867, civil property and civil rights within the province. The federal government can't do it on its own. It must work with the provinces. Now, sadly, this Liberal government's record is getting sued by the provinces. So the federal government won the last round. I guess congratulations are in order, but Canadians are wondering why intergovernmental affairs on something as important as the environment needs to resort to the courts in the first place. Why doesn't the federal government work with the provinces and come to a consensus on how to move forward? Conservatives understand the significance of that, and we will work with the provinces. Conservatives also recognize that the fight against global climate change is, in fact, global. Canada cannot do it on its own. If it is global, after all, solutions also must be global. Canada is a large, expansive land. It's a northern hemisphere. It's cold, and people must travel a lot and must heat their homes and their offices. That's just a fact of life in Canada. But that said, Canada produces only a small fraction of the total world's greenhouse gas emissions, something often overlooked. All that said, Canadians do want to do their part. We are inventive. We have great universities. We are leaders in technological advances. And with strategic partnerships, we can develop and export our green technology around the globe, not only for our own use domestically, but internationally. We are a trading nation, but that trade must be fair. We have to be playing on an even playing field. And if we are going to impose tough environmental standards on ourselves, and I agree that we must, then it's only fair that others who trade with us should be held to the same or comparable standards. Producers in countries with emission reductions targets and mechanisms compatible with our own will be exempt. Countries that don't have high emissions reduction standards will have to pay. In that way, the Conservative plan will secure both the environment and Canadian industry and jobs. And we will urge our American trading partners, our biggest trading partner, to adopt the same approach. I want to talk about the oil and gas sector. Canada is a big producer, but also a responsible producer. We have the best minds in the world working on cleaner energy production. And that applies not only to renewable energy, but also to the more traditional oil and gas extraction, production, processing, and delivery. We are leaders in all of that. To say that this sector needs to be phased out misses the reality that an ever improving industry and the very obvious fact that that the world needs Canada's oil and gas. The International Energy Agency has projected that demand for oil will remain high for decades. And this is particularly true with the downturn in U.S. shale production. The world needs our oil. We need to produce it responsibly. We do not need to be talking about phasing it out. The government's stated goal in phasing out the oil and gas overlooks also the fact that since 1998, investment and production of Canada oil has been one of the driving forces behind Canada's economic growth, and that must be true as we look to a pandemic recovery plan as well. I also want to talk about the LNG. My province is British Columbia. We are a big producer of natural gas, and it can be a big tool in Canada helping the world become cleaner. Natural gas burns much cleaner than other fossil fuels and should be used at home and abroad to replace other more polluting energy sources. Using LNG instead of coal cuts emissions in half, and countries across Asia are eager to do business with us. Red tape imposed by this Liberal government means massive projects like Kitimat LNG are in danger of cancellation. This hurts not just Canadian jobs, but the planet. What Canada needs is a government that sends a message to the world that we are proud of our natural resources and that we will develop them in a responsible way. We will attract investment, not scare it off. And we recognize when we're talking about investment that industry leaders are already changing their worldview and investment strategies to be looked at through an ESG lens, environmental, social, and governance lens. Our plan recognizes that increasingly there is an expectation in global capital markets that ESG is an important factor. Our ESG leadership will help demonstrate the leadership of our oil and gas sector with respect to emissions intensity reduction. I also want to mention Indigenous peoples, and we need to acknowledge the historic fact that they have not been treated respectfully. Canada needs to show leadership here as well. The current government has often said that there's no relationship more important to them than with our Indigenous peoples. But let's see how that's worked out recently. The Coastal GasLink investors thought that they had an understanding with the Wet'suwet'en people, the people whose traditional lands the pipeline will be built across, and who should be benefiting from that investment and that structure. But so far, it's not built, and the protests continue.
And we have We have to go to questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. When the member started off his speech, he talked about the only difference between the Conservatives' new price on pollution and the existing one that this government has is that Conservatives appear to apparently trust Canadians in how to spend their money. Nothing could be further from the truth, Madam Speaker. This side of the House, the government plan was put in place where the money that was collected from through the price on pollution goes back equally and evenly distributed within the province. People get to decide how to spend their money and in which way that they do. At least that's the case in Ontario with this, since the federal government had to step in. The plan from the Conservatives literally takes people's money, puts it into a special bank account, and then you have to go to the Conservative Party boutique to decide what you're going to get, what green product you're going to buy. It clearly demonstrates that the Conservatives are trying to control what people can spend their money on. Can he please add some clarity to the fact that he's suggesting that the Conservative plan it gives people more decision-making power on their own?
The Honourable Member for Langley Eldergrove.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the Honourable Member for his question. Conservatives trust Canadians to do the right things, but we've heard from members of the Liberal side of the House that under a Conservative plan, Canadians will actually be incentivized to drive more, burn more to earn more. So cynical. That's not the way Canadians think of, the Conservatives think of our fellow citizens. We are confident that given the right incentives, Canadians will do the right thing. Government doesn't know best. Clearly, government doesn't always know best. Let individuals make their own decisions. And as for the Liberals' carbon tax plan, it is a redistribution of wealth. It is not revenue neutral to the individual.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the member for his speech. You know, I hear again and again from Conservatives that we cannot turn off the taps tomorrow when it comes to the oil and gas industry. Well, I would recommend that we do end subsidies to the oil and gas industry immediately, because that money is needed. It is needed to be invested in the transition that must happen. And it's imperative because we need to look at where we are going, not just where we are today. And it's important for our future on all measures, including the economy and the environment. Does the member agree that Canada needs to take action now and that this bill needs to have firmer targets that will put us in line with the international commitments that Canada has made?
The Honourable Member for Langley Eldergrove.
Well, first of all, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the member opposite for her question. The premise of her question ignores the fact that a lot of money is being invested in the oil and gas sector by oil and gas companies into cleaner and better ways and more responsible ways to produce oil and gas. There's been drastic improvements as far as that goes, and we should be encouraging that industry to keep on doing that, to keep on becoming cleaner and greener, and we should not be talking about phasing them out. There's a lot of jobs, a lot of investment, and this is what drives Canada's economy. That is being ignored, sadly. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox, Addington.
Thank you. I appreciate the member's comments, and I just wanted to draw some attention to the enormity of the targets we're talking about here. And I look back, and since 2005, we've only decreased our emissions by about 1% when we look at 2019 years. And the Prime Minister has recently agreed to reduce them by an additional 45%. We've been doing carbon taxes. Ontario, they had their Green Energy Act that increased the cost of electricity by $37 billion for Ontario citizens. I don't know, and I've seen also experts who say that COVID has likely only reduced our emissions by about 7%. I don't know how we're going to meet 45%, and I surely don't know how we're going to get to net zero without destroying our economy.
Honourable Member for Langley Eldergrove.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the member for his question. I would reiterate that this bill, C-12, purports to set targets and to be aggressive, but it's not really at all. It misses the target in many, many ways. The accountability section is almost meaningless. It's without teeth. A Conservative government would take meeting our targets very seriously. and we would do so without killing jobs and without phasing out of our energy resource industries. We recognize that that is an important part of our economy and delivering.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's an honor to rise virtually in this House today to speak on Bill C-12, the Net Zero Emission Accountability Act. Bill C-12 emphasizes the action needed to meet our goals toward fighting climate change and reducing our carbon footprint. For years,